Hi, and welcome to PJ Maybe's YouTube channel. We have got some minor issues. The main issue is I seem to have some interference around the building that makes the quality not great, but we'll see how it goes. Any comments on how you think it's going? Please comment away. I'll be listening in. I'm going to be looking at Stargate SG1 Season 1. I'll be looking at the characters, what they introduce, how it goes, and if you like what you see, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. I'm hoping to do all 10 seasons and then maybe go on to Stargate Atlantis, then Universe, and then the webisodes and some of the movies as well, to see how things are. Hopefully after this we could maybe go on to other TV shows, Firefly, sci-fi ones in particular, sci-fi fantasy. So there is a lot out there. So hopefully we can do this. I'm hoping to do it weekly, but maybe end up doing it fortnightly or once a month. We'll see how it goes. So we will start with episode 1, which was a double episode, so 1, 2, which was Children of the Gods. This was a good one because it introduced the characters, and it basically was Neil was recalled back to service, and it's a year after the movie, which I've previously reviewed, and I'll put a link in the description to if you want to go and watch that as well. The reason he's called back is the Stargate is active and a female air woman is kidnapped, and a few of the airmen who were guarding it are killed. It's actually a really good way to start the show because it takes a lot in that was from the movie and tidies it up a bit. It introduces Richard Dean Anderson as Jack O'Neill. Michael Shanks is Dr. Daniel Jackson. Amanda Tapping is Captain Carter. Captain, I think it is initially. Christopher Judd is Teal'c, and the General Hammond, Don S. Davids. It also introduces Apophis, Peter Williams, who was a mainstay of the first season. Was really good at the part, I thought. I think he was a better bad guy than Ra. More nuance to him. And it also reintroduced a couple of characters from the movie. Skarra, played by Alexis Cruz, and he was actually, he continued his character, and I think it actually also, there was only 2 characters reintroduced from the movie that continued on, which was Skarra and Kasuf. That was, I think it's Skarra's father and Shadi's father. The 2 of them were the same same actors playing the same role. So it was quite good, and it just continues on from the movie. It starts off with them getting all recalled because of that. They think it's come back from Abydos, the gate's been reactivated from Abydos, so they try and get access to reconnect to Daniel Jackson. His gate's active, so they send a message that only he could reply to, which is Hanky's, believe it or not. He replies back, and some of the things they set up on this episode, they discontinued. I think there was aspects of it that the studio interfered with, and the way they were playing the characters and things they done. The noticeable differences were things like when they went through the Stargate, they were meant to be they coated in frost or something like that, and they introduced that at the beginning, and then I think they realised that it wouldn't work the way they were going to go forward. But and initially, that's how it presented itself. They went through the Stargate. There was a moment of brief cold, which caused things to, like a coating of thin ice crystals to form over them. The aspect of it was Michael Shanks effectively played James Spader as Daniel Jackson. You'll notice throughout the season that his character changes throughout. He becomes less James Spader and more Michael Shanks's Dr. Jackson. So when you're looking at it, you see a lot of people thought it was James Spader initially, the same person who was in the movie, which it wasn't. And I think his progression through it actually it changes it for the better, because when he first starts it, he's got the long hair, the longer hair, same as Michael Shanks. He had the allergies and the coughing fits and stuff like that, as you saw in the movie, which gradually throughout his story arc he gets rid of. He's still the geeky, well-read person, but I think there's certain aspects of this episode that were good. And the good aspects of it, I must admit, were the fact that Carter, when she was introduced, she showed she was a kick-ass captain. Some of the aspects of it, her character, were really good, because it wasn't the typical, they brought in a female to be the one that had to get rescued. She starts off straight off basically getting played down. Oh, Sam, oh, hiding the fact that you're a female until we all know, and stuff like that. She's more combat experience, smarter than any of the males on the team, except obviously O'Neill. It shows that the character wasn't going to be pandered to. She was going to be a kick-ass character all the way through it, and I think Amanda Tappin plays that really well. Amanda Tappin's Carter, I think, was a good addition to it. It's an addition that I'm looking at the comments, and yes, Carter was good, and as I was going over it, the fact that they had Carter as one of the kick-ass characters in it before you met Teal'c, it was really good. Some of the nice aspects of it were things like they made a joke about Richard Dean Anderson's previous starring role. They mentioned when they were through the Stargate how to get things working again they would have to MacGyver it. Richard Dean Anderson was MacGyver in his early career, so I thought that was quite a nice thing, because it's the type of thing people would say they would MacGyver something because of the TV show, and she mentions it, and he's the one that played MacGyver. I thought was quite a nice wee touch. I loved the fact that they used the title and the musics from the movie. It gave that continuation to the movie, brought it forward. And I think the fact that the characters seem to have a good chemistry about the way they showed across, because it made them feel like a team, and it's to do with the way they worked together as a group of actors which gave the impression that they worked together as a team for SG1. The rest of the story, we'll go through aspects of the story. I'm not going to give every point by point. Aspects such as the covered in frost when they go through the gate, I thought I couldn't see how that could continue on. They meet up with the rest of the people from Abydos when they go through, try to identify who kidnapped, and the ones who came through also to attack the SG1, attacked the base, the Abydos, and kidnapped Skarra and Shari. The kidnapping of Shari was a way for Daniel Jackson to be brought back in. It was a wee bit ham-fisted, but I thought it was a good way to bring him in and to give O'Neill a reason to be very anti-Gould, because Skarra was his friend. He basically replaced his son, not replaced him as such. He looked on him as a second son, because he was young and from the movie. Other aspects I didn't like was the selection process that the Goulds had. It's almost like they were looking for someone for their wife and their kids. Later on, that aspect got dropped, and I just thought it just didn't seem right as you go through the season, and as you go through further seasons. Looking back and see episode 1, you could see all the bits that they were looking at, and then they've obviously decided to drop it. The certain aspects of the show were done because of studio interference. Because it was, I think it was on HBO Max or HBO, that they thought it could deal better as an adult programme, so they had nudity in it. The producers, directors, or writers just weren't happy with that, and they fought it. They fought it that much that they managed to go back and reshoot the scenes later on, prior to being released on syndication, so they could take out the nude scene, so it could be open to a more family friendly audience, and I think that helped it. There was no really any need for it. Aspects of the show, obviously any show progresses. Shari and Skarra get implanted with Gould symbiotes. That was the reason for SG1 to go searching. Daniel looking for his wife, Jack looking for Skarra. Carter was there to give the brains, the technical side, and then they introduced Teal'c, who was a Jaffa who picked the people to be selected, shot people, but he didn't like it, so he turned on his masters and helped SG1, and then he gets brought back. And as he gets brought back, coming back through the Stargate, one of the team, Teal'c gets infected by a Gould lava, which was an immature Gould from one of the Jaffa's stomach pouches. So obviously build up for the end of the two-parter to introduce the characters. It was also a way to give Teal'c his in for being a member of the team, because at the beginning you see all the aspects of that. Well, he's an alien, can we trust him, because he's already turned on the people who he worked with, they might turn on us. And being a first prime of Apophis and having those doubts, it gave him something to do, and he had to be cemented in the team, and by defending against Kowalski returning through and exposing Earth to the Gould was not a way to do it. So him stopping them gave him the in to be part of the team. Later on, Teal'c actually joins the rebellion of the Jaffa. He wasn't actually in it initially, and he didn't really know about it. He was aware of it because his teacher, who will be mentioned later on, was brought in. And these all get built up throughout the season. But initially the first episode was to introduce all the characters, to show what type of characters they were, and to continue on. So the first 2 episodes were really good for that, because they cemented that these were the people and these is how they were going to act. They were quite well defined characters. Once you go on to the next episode, which was episode 3, The Enemy Within, it was all about Kowalski. Akavon, I think that's how it's pronounced. He basically was the one that was infected by the Gould. They're planning to do a foray through the gate, checking various sites, and he'll ask for Teal'c to be allowed to join, but he's not allowed to, because he's a host for a Gould, he's unknown to anyone and such like. But Kowalski actually was, he was the leader of the second team, SG2. He became infected on the previous episode, the first episode, and this was the one about how the Gould took over him. It was a very Kowalski centric episode, and this was the episode that put Teal'c as part of the team. This was the one that I mentioned earlier about how he was constantly told he couldn't actually join the team because they didn't know he was an alien, he was an unknown thing, he was from the enemy, and do they know if they can trust him? Kowalski getting taken over by the host, I thought it was a wee bit silly with the fact that he wanted to go through the gate, but he mentioned to Teal'c, just so he could kill him, that he was still Gould after the operation to remove the Gould failed. And when he tried to return through the gate, Teal'c stopped him, managed to kill him and kill the Gould. And it was after that Teal'c was accepted fully as part of the team. So season 1, episode 1, 2, the double episode was the one that's introduced all the characters. Season 2 was showing the team, building the team, because they had to have a way to get Teal'c as part of the team. And I think Christopher Judd as an alien worked very well. I think the fact that he is very stoic, he's a very good character. I think he's just, his stoic nature worked very well as an alien, as a very dangerous man. Later on it actually gives a lot of humour as part of that aspect of it. So I think the fact that the characters playing it managed to show their loyalty to become part of the team. Season 2 was to do with Kowalski being a Gould, introducing how Gould became or infested by a Gould, what happens to the character or the person's self-imposed character. That it gave you why they had to actually be very careful later on about checking out team members to make sure they weren't infested and stuff, and how easy it could be and how they can still act like the person dealing with it. We'll go on. So that was the team. The team is set now. Teal'c has pledged his loyalty to his new world, even after the was it the CIA or the Air Force intelligence were sent to question him. They still didn't trust him, but after he stopped Teal'c and saved Earth, they introduced him to the team. He got the go ahead. I thought that was quite a good way to introduce the characters, the Gould, what the Gould could do to infest people, and why Teal'c became a member of the team. After that, they go on to their episodic adventures. Some of them were good. The next one, I think I can honestly say, is one of the worst ones. And one of the worst ones was Emancipation. They were exploring a world. It's basically populated by Mongol descendants from the steppes, and Captain Carter has been abducted because the boy she saved wanted the daughter of one of the other tribal leaders, and thought it would be a good way of getting the girl, because women aren't allowed to show their face and are not allowed to speak unless they're spoken to. It was very, I thought, very heavy handed on it. The good things about it was one of the Mongols they introduced was played by Sun Kyo. He's been in a lot of different bits and pieces. We've been in MASH, he's been in Quincy, he's just been in a load of stuff, and every time you see him, he's just got that character about him. He's just a very, I think any of the characters he plays is always very well done. He just plays it so well. He's such a great character to watch. He was one of my favourite characters. He only had an occasional part in MASH. I think he played 3 different people in MASH, and each person was just superb. And I think it was down to him. Sun Kyo played the Mongol leader of the tribe who was more progressive, and it was his son that kidnapped Carter, and they sold her to another Mongol leader, local warlord, to try and get his daughter. But he says no, gives him gold, keeps his daughter, because his daughter's going to get married off to another leader so he can cement his tribal power, and they have to escape and without interfering. However, they do a fight, and Carter is told, they told him Carter's a leader amongst their people, and she has to fight. They think it's just a fight, but it's a fight to the death. But she beats the Mongol warlord, and the forgives the son for kidnapping her to save his beloved, who he ends up with because Carter beat the warlord. He also released her, and that the tribe that helped released the women so they could show their face and talk and be more free. I thought it was just a very heavy-handed, look how far we've come forward with this. I think a lot of people think the Emancipation episode was one of the worst ones, and considering it was one of the early ones, they're finding their steps where they want to go, but I thought it was just a wee bit OTT with the progression of how far we've progressed compared to the ancient peoples. very similar with a lot of the times they meet other cultures. They always act as if a bit backwards, and Daniel's always wanting to learn and stuff like that. But as a introduction to the character, I thought, nah, didn't really like that episode. Third episode was a wee bit better, and it introduced another character. That was the Broca Divide. That was the one about they get the team go over through Stargate, and they come across a planet which is half in dark, half in light, and the ones in the light are Minoan character, a Minoan culture, whereas the ones in the dark were very cave-like, and it turned out it was an infection it caused them to act barbaric, and the team become infected. When they come back through the Stargate, they infect the whole mountain. It introduces Terry Rossi as Dr. Fraser, and she's always welcome in it. She's just, I think, introducing Dr. Fraser was a very well thought character. She was a smart doctor, took no nonsense from any of them, even Teal'c or O'Neill. She wanted something done, you did it. End of story. I'm in charge, I'm a doctor. She was a very well liked character after throughout her run, and I think she could have done with being in a lot more episodes, because she was a recurring character. She wasn't in every episode, but her character fitted in well. Even amongst the team, she fitted in well, although she didn't really go through the Stargate as part of the team. But the episode was each of the members that were infected became very caveman-like, the brow ridges, and acted very violent, which I couldn't understand how they became more barbaric like that. I could understand the barbaric nature, but why would it change their features, give them the brow ridge and stuff like that? I think the fact that the brow ridges were introduced as part of it, they could have actually still had going down the route of being slightly barbaric, yes, but looking more caveman-like. I thought was a wee bit silly. But it was a good episode all in all, because it was all about how they had to conquer it, and O'Neill had a bit more savvy in himself, that when he was sedated enough, he had a wee bit more brains, and he wanted the experiments to be done on him, and why certain members didn't become infected, which turned out, spoilers, to be because they were on antihistamines, which reduced the amount of histamine proteins in their body, so all they need to do is give them an injection which it gets rid of the histamines for an amount of time for the infection to die, so they could all come back. It was not too bad the way they did it. However, I think it was only the makeup that failed this episode, with the looking more caveman-like with the brow ridges and everybody with growing the extra hair and stuff like that. All in all, I quite liked the Broca Divide. It just gives you something to look at. And I'm looking at the chat, Gordon, and yes, it was a tragic loss later on, but we'll deal with that when it actually happens. There's no point actually talking about too much about what happens later on until we do it, and I'll get you on to discuss it. Terry Rossi was a pleasure to watch. Yet again, another strong female character. Not another, oh, she's just there to get told what to do and stuff like that. I think SG1 didn't play politics at that time. They had people, they had an idea of what they wanted, and they got people who could play what they wanted. Got good people playing good parts. I don't think there's been anybody in these episodes that I thought didn't play the part well. The only one I would say was the Showry character, but then again, she was only there to be kidnapped and impregnated with, or infested with, a goa'uld just to get Daniel. So it was, she was not very, she was a plot point. But then again, you could say that about Scar, but he played it later on a bit better. But I think the fact that the other characters they introduced, like for instance Dr. Fraser, Carter, and later on other characters, they just brought in the best people for the part, and they didn't pander. And as these episodes go on, you see the studio have got less and less of a push for certain things. The fact is, I think the writers in that were getting into their own stride. Like for instance, Emancipation not being very good, Broker Divide being a bit better, and then as they go forward, we'll look at the next one, which would be episode 6, which would be the first commandment. That was SG1 are sent after another team that failed to return, SG9. They find that SG9's captain has been treated like a god by the inhabitants, who were weird the way they were done. They were meant to be very primitive, because half of them are basically stoning about with loincloths and the helmet thing on their head like something from Easter Island, yet the other half are dressed like ancient Egyptians, basically cloth and clothing and stuff like that. So it was almost like two cultures mashed together. They send the team through because Carter has got a past with this guy. Captain Hansen, I think it was, because they introduced William Russ as Captain Hansen. It was a decent story. They asked certain things I didn't like about it, where it was a wee bit OTT with the "I am your God, you shall do what I say" type thing. I thought that was it was just a wee bit over the top. And it's the same again. The two of the team, as in Captain Hansen and his right hand man, were forcing everybody to build a temple. But two of the members of the team who didn't want to do it tried to get back to the gate. They killed one and the other one escaped. And I thought, right, so if the one who was treated as a god turned, why did the other one turn and back him up and quite happy to kill his teammates, who I suppose were his friends, just because? It just seemed, why? It's just that was never really explained. It wasn't a case of he saved his life and these two other guys he didn't like, and that's why he turned against him, and that's why he followed him even though he was nuts. It's just, there was a couple of unanswered questions, and I'm going to have to move my camera a wee bit, if you don't mind, just so I can see the comments. I'm just laughing at the comments. The characters in this story were not the best characters. The "I am your god" and "you shall do what I say" and stuff like that, I just thought was a wee bit. Oh, it was, as Gordon says, a wee bit contrived. It was. It wasn't the best story. It was a decent story because it was a showing how good people could go bad, but it didn't really explain why good people could go bad. Oh, they treated me as a god, and I just thought I could bring them forward. How? Because they lived in caves and they were now going to survive. So if I could bring them out and give them something to do, they could progress. And but I'm quite happy for them all to die, and anybody that doesn't listen to me, I'll kill and stuff like that. It just was a wee bit over the top things. A decent story with bad characters is probably the easiest way to do that one. Whereas the next one, the episode 7, Cold Lazarus, was a good story. That was a Jack story, and it's basically when he's injured unintentionally by a crystalline alien. The alien duplicates Jack and comes back through, thinking the SG team, being like the Goulds, would kill him, would destroy all the they would destroy all the crystalline ones, which to an extent, yes, I can understand aspects of it, but only aspects of it, because the way they actually introduced the crystalline characters, saying that, well, the Gould did it before, so you look like Gould, so I'm worried about that. It was a wee bit on the nose, but I thought the way they did it, they could have done it better, because the way they did it was to give Jack a backstory, to tell you more about Jack. In effect, well, Jack's still unconscious in the other world. The entity feels there's something he needs to accomplish, and it's all to do with Jack's son. So he goes, finds it, and then the real Jack comes back and finds it. Everybody thinks he's the fake because the other one's there. It was a good Jack backstory. Jack O'Neill, how he lost his son, how his wife, his family fell apart because he felt responsible and he couldn't get. I mean, it gave more back character to Jack O'Neill. And if you want to watch, if you like the Jack character, definitely Cold Lazarus is one of the better ones for him in his first season. It basically gives his backstory, allows Richard Dean Anderson to play the quirky guy he always was, but to play it a lot more emotionally. And I think you needed to see the Cold Lazarus, because it gives Jack O'Neill a bit more character depth. Gordon, what you saying about the impressing the team was wanting to make money? What, within the God one, the first commandment? I didn't think that myself. I must admit, it was. The reason the team were going through the gate was to get technology. If that's what you're talking about, they were looking for technology to defeat the Gould. but I can't remember if it was to do with money. I can't remember money actually ever being mentioned in it. So you can let us know what ones you're talking about. But if it was the first commandment one, now I thought it was to do with the fact is he thought he could bring them more through to, he became delusional, and I think it was he thought he could actually help prove their people. And why else would they go doing a super dangerous job? Well, they would be going to do it to actually explore Star Trek, explore strange new worlds, meet new life, new civilization, to boldly go where no one has gone before, except the Gould. But that's a different show. And the God one, I thought, it just goes to show how other you can influence because somebody thinks you're good, and I just that story was I didn't like the characters in it. I liked the story, but I didn't like the characters. I thought it was a wee bit over the top. Right. Well, I'm actually just going to, since Gordon's doing a lot of comment, I'm actually going to chat to you as well. Anil's motivation was to go through it was Skarra initially. Also to actually deal with his, he still had that lack of a goal after his son had died from the movie. So his goal was to get Skarra back because Skarra was his second son. If that would be right, I think yes. He was a man, had nothing to lose, but because of the movie, his way of seeing Skarra as a kid who reminded him of his son, he had a very close bond to him, and he gets taken, so he's wanting to go out and get him. And Neil's motivation was for his country, his world, and for Skarra. It was Skarra he was always trying to get, which is later on you'll see. The last episode on season 1 is a bit better for that. And what I'll do, Gordon, is I'll get you season 1 so you can actually watch it. I'll put it on my Dropbox so you can actually see what I'm talking about, and then once you've downloaded it I'll put season 2 up for you, so then you can't have an excuse for not coming on next time and doing a review with me of season 2. That'll teach you. Sitting commenting all the time. The next episode, episode 8, was one of my favourites, and it introduced the Nox. Armin Shimmerman. Just what can you say? Armin Shimmerman was just so good. It also had Apophis back, and a good bad guy comes back. So the basic premise of this story was, with the programme being in danger of termination, the team are under pressure to get technology by visiting other planets, and they're getting nothing. So I think it's Teal'c tells them about a place where the Gould have been trying to get technology, and so they go to that place to try and find these invisible bird-like creatures and see if that could help them, because if it could help them, the invisibility would be superb. It's a highly sought after technology, so yes. And they encounter Apophis and his guards who are there for the same thing. Both sides receive mortal wounds, and during a firefight most of SG1 die, and one of the guards die, but Apophis got his thing, doesn't die. So they meet the Nox, a very gentle people with a secret. They're the ones that can turn invisible. They make things disappear. The Stargate vanishes, which I found weird, because if you knew where something was and it vanishes, did they make it vanish, or just did it actually just become invisible? Because if it just became invisible, why couldn't they just walk up and try and touch it? But if they managed to teleport it somewhere, that's a different story. But the way they implied is they just made it invisible. So if they could make it invisible, why couldn't they just go up and touch it, find out where it was? They might not have been able to actually touch the symbols and activate it, but they should have been able to find it. I thought that was a wee bit convoluted, because it was something that jumped out at me from the very first time I saw it, and I thought, no good. The invisible aspect of it, if it was invisible, Gordon, was why didn't they go and find it by just touching the things? Because it would have been in the same place. They might not have known exactly, but it's a big ass ring. Why couldn't they actually say, well, it was over there somewhere, let's go and look for it again? It's not as if we've walked 15 miles and we can't remember exactly where it is. They were still standing in the same field. You know what I mean? So it was behind them, they turned around and it wasn't there, so that's the aspect of it I thought was a bit silly. The thing I did like it, and if you remember, Gordon, you just actually you're listening to June. What did you think of Apophis' shield? Very Dune-like, wasn't it? Things travelling at speed couldn't go through his shield, but things travelling slowly, like when he got thrown the staff, could go through his shield. Did that not remind you of Dune? Because the Dune ones, they had, if somebody was shooting at them, it bounced off it unless they fired the bullet that would hit it, slow right down and release an internal one, or else they would do a knife fight because it was going slow enough to go through the shield. I thought Apophis' shield was very like that, and I think they'd watched Dune when they were doing this one with the shields. I just thought it was either his shield was maybe body centric rather than actually all round him, but yes, if they wanted to pass him something, they had to have a reason for it not going through. The Nox were just superb as weird characters. I think they're one of the weirdest characters that weren't barbarians or backward people. They were so far advanced that it was unreal, but they just looked like primitives. And yep, O'Neill has read the book Dune. I don't know, I can't remember that aspect of it, but that had nothing to do with the shields. But then again, you tell me. And yes, anybody that's watched sci-fi's or been into sci-fi for years would have read Dune. We've all read Dune, or if not, we've all seen the movie. Some of us have watched the audiobook, some of us haven't, or read the audiobook, or listened to it. One of the two or three or four. The aspect of that, I thought the introduction of the Nox and how they thought they were primitive, and it turns around they were so far advanced, it just made them look primitive in hindsight. And the humans being primitive, it was good. The next episode after that, they didn't really introduce any long stay characters, it was just an episodic one. Brief candle. That was the 100 days one, where O'Neill got married, got his end away, however you want to put it. However, the fact that he only had 100 days and everybody on the planet had 100 days, and they thought that was it, normal. So the baby was born, by day 3 it was the equivalent of about 5 or 6. And then it's the 12 days old, you're 16, 17, whatever. It's basically their lifespan was increased by a factor or whatever. So they had 100 days to live their life. So it was a very episodic. He gets seduced by one of the characters, and he now has a lifespan, and being 40 odds, his life is catching up because obviously it's all done with nanites in the blood, and they have to find a cure or else he's going to go. And it turns out the cure is the statue that they think is the god, who Jackson and all that think is one of the ghouls that told them there was the god. And once they destroyed that, everything started going back to normal. People's lifespan started increasing and stuff like that. Jack became normal again, but he was the old man of the show, 100 days old. There was nothing special. It was just a very self-contained episode. So it was. There was nothing out of the ordinary in that one, except the fact is, yes, it was another infection. They didn't want to bring it back, so Jack couldn't come back through in case everybody get infected with it. But they'd already brought the nanites back, so, and they managed to destroy them, so why couldn't they actually do something like that? And if they knew there was nanites, why not actually send an EMP through the Stargate and it could actually destroy the nanites? I thought they could have actually done a better way than just destroying the statue. Maybe an EMP might have worked, maybe it might not have, but so obviously it's passed from person to person, so why Jack got it because he was seduced and everybody else didn't. Yeah, an okay episode, but very self-contained, nothing special. Next episode was the initial introduction of an enemy of the Gould. We find out later the Asgard, because SG1 goes to a planet in search of allies against the Gould. When you arrive, Thor's hammer scans them and Teal'c is transported, but Jack dives to push him out the way of the beam, and the both of them get transported into a labyrinth, and there's only one exit, and the only way somebody could exit is without a symbiont inside them, so obviously Teal'c can't, because he would die. And they come across a creature which has still got a Gould in it, but it turns out it's meant to be the first one. So Teal'c and O'Neill are in the labyrinth trying to fight the first one, which we later on find out are the Unas, which, as far as I understand, with the Unas were from the same planet as the Gould. That's why they were known as the first ones, because they were the ones that were infested by the Gould before the Gould actually managed to get people with technology and continued on from there. But I digress, that's later on we find that out. So Jack and Teal'c have to fight this Unas and find a way out. They find a way out, but only Jack can go through it. Teal'c can't, because he's got the symbiont, and if he gets rid of the symbiont he can go through, but if he does, he dies anyway. The Unas doesn't want to. He wants to keep the people. And in the meantime, Carter and Jackson talk to someone who was a Gould and who has been released by the Gould. And so as a Gould, they went through. She came through. She found, she can't remember exactly where it was because she's traumatised. Jackson finds out that what are you talking about, the food and water? What was in the food and water? It wasn't, it was to do with the marriage cakes. If you're talking about the brief candle, she cooked him a marriage cake, but it wasn't the food or water. It was the fact is they spent the night together, you remember, because he fell asleep afterwards, because beforehand he didn't. He woke up and she was still sleeping, and he walked out, and then clunk, next night he phased out. The last episode, Brief Candle, it was the sharing of bodily fluid, shall we say. It wasn't the food and water. Although she made the marriage cake for him, that was just a way of seducing him. But we'll digress, shall we say. I think the stream is running a couple of seconds behind, so you might be typing something off and I read it and it's off. But it's only because I've watched the season in the last week and I remember a lot of these things. Once you catch up, we should have a better knowledge of it. Anyway, Thor's hammer. They meet the girl who had been released. Jackson finds out there's hope for Shari and Skarra because once the guild's out, the character, the person's or the host's nature is not gone, it's still there. I think this is it was a sort of, I would say a sort of standalone episode, but it was a lead-in episode because they come back to it later on. When they come back to they come back to these things, but they don't really come back to this place. They come back to the Unas, they come back to the Asgard. You don't know the names of each of the creatures, but they do come back to this episode later on. This episode is one of the ones they do come back to aspects of it, and I think that was a good episode for introducing characters that will be brought in later on, because they didn't overwhelm it. It wasn't a case of here's a new race, this is this. It was just sort of an introductory. These are the Asgard. The only reason you know they're Asgard because it's a Viking settlement from the past, and it's obviously a continuation of that. So the next episode is one of the more humorous ones, I think, and you have got a couple of people in it which I quite liked. You had the characters were Ernest, played by Keen Curtis, and he just played an old Ernest superb. He just looked confused, puzzled, scared, shy, a bit crazy. He was just a very well done portrayal of a character who's been on his own for 50 years, 40 years, but a long time on his own in a place that he couldn't tell anybody about. Good thing is you've got a link to another aspect of this. You had the one playing young Ernest was Paul McGillian, who played Carson Beckett in the Stargate franchise. Carson Beckett, as you can understand, you remember, was the Doctor in Stargate Atlantis. But Paul Gillian played the young Ernest in this one when they did the flashback. You also reintroduced the Dr. Langford. It's a different actress playing this part, but it's Dr. Langford from the movie. Elizabeth Hoffman played Dr. Kathleen Langford. I think she played it better, so I think the last one was just a wee bit too eccentric, whereas this Kathleen Langford plays it as an older, wiser archaeologist who has got the knowledge. She just leaves it. But I really liked this one. The story was they discover tapes. They're going through all the old footage and all the old knowledge, and they look at a video from 1945. So if this was 1990, so it's 50 years. Then they saw a young professor go through the Stargate and he never returned. So they've got the address, so they go and find him, and they take Kathleen Langford with her because it was her fiance. And when they get through the gate, he's floating about naked. He sees him, goes rushing away and shy and a bit half crazy, and then he basically is. It's just a very humorous episode, very sad episode, but very humorous as well. And I think it's down to Keen Curtis's portrayal of Ernest made this one of the better episodes in this season, and definitely it's one of my favourites. It's a shame they didn't have Ernest come backwards and forwards, because that would have been nice to see that character come back to normality after 50 years being on his own. You imagine 1945, you suddenly wake up or you come back to Earth and you go, technology? Really? All the things that has happened in 50 years that he's missed, yet look at all the knowledge he's built up. So I suppose it's the Captain America syndrome, isn't it? Basically, Captain America slept in ice for so long, and Ernest was in another planet for 50 years. But I digress. He goes through and never returns, so they go through to find him. And they find him, and they find no DHD to return, or they do, but it's damaged. So they have to actually find a way of activating the gate, which they eventually do, but they find that the place he has been in was an ancient repository for aliens, 5 races. That's the first mention of the 5 races. They mentioned the language is similar to 2 others they've come across, and I think the one was the Asgard, and I can't remember what the other one was. But the object to this one was an escape one. They had to escape before the building they were in fell into the sea, and if it did, it takes the Stargate away with them and they never get back. However, how did they get back in the first place anyway? And if they do get back, will Daniel go back with them? Because this the depository of the knowledge of the ancients, as it were. I thought this was an episode with enough humour in it, enough of a decent story, enough that would allow them to actually go through. But did they think you went down the route with Teal'c? I think they did not do that, because they go down that route with Teal'c a bit. What part are you talking about, Gordon? You need to actually put a wee bit of contents in it, because I'm a wee bit ahead from what you are. There's an episode or 2 where they have Teal'c getting introduced to all the Earth cultures. Yeah, that's later on. I think he's constantly watching TV, and he does reference to people. But yes, that's a slightly different, because you're not talking about an introduction to Earth cultures. You're talking about a reintroduction. Somebody who was on Earth and the technology had the Earth technology, and see how far it's gone on. You going to a different planet and actually discovering technology that they have, which is different from yours, is a bit, oh dear, wow, look at that. But you imagine going to sleep for 50 years and then waking up and people answer you, say, what about YouTube? YouTube, what's that? Is that old thing? Oh no, we do this now. It's that aspect of it. You had radio. Oh, you've still got radio around? That's amazing. Aye, but it's this. But you can also watch it on TV, or you can watch it on the internet, or you can listen to it on your car as you're driving. You can listen to it just with your wee earbuds in. It's that technology I was meaning, because yes, Teal'c is different because he's learning about the cultures on the Earth, whereas I'm thinking about Ernest having to relearn the technology in cultures, because cultures don't change that much. You imagine going back to 1945, there's a war, the people's idea of what's important is different. People's idea of language and different is slightly different. However, there's cars, you can drive a car. There's radio, you know what a radio is, you're not going to freak out. But you go 50 years into the future, what type of technology you're going to walk, try to cross the road, and you realise that as soon as you cross the road, the cars fly over your head and it's not going to affect you. You imagine seeing a flying car for the first time, how it would affect you. And it's a case of, it's that what I'm saying about the torment of Tantarus. Ernest had to relearn it, and I thought it would have been a nice way to do it, whereas Teal'c has to, he's just learned about a different culture completely. Put you in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Yes, you might have that, you've got technology, but you still have to learn the cultures and things like that, because your technology might not work. And I think that's what I was meaning about Ernest having to relearn things. Things that, yes, he could still do. He could still jump in a car and drive. It's not much different in a car. Yes, he might have to learn gears and all that, but the car driving is not that much different from 50 years ago. Different types of car, different clutches, but in the whole, it's just a wee slight learning experience. Whereas Teal'c was completely different, I thought. Anywho, I would definitely watch Torment of Tantarus. It is a fantastic episode. It's just a fun standalone episode. If you watch it out of sequence, it's not going to affect anything. I think you should definitely watch this one. This is one of the funniest ones on the season. And yes, you could have, I'm not talking about having Ernest come back as a character, just that introduction of how the wow factor of it's gone that far forward, because it would give people something to look at, because you talk to your granny. Your granny can tell you stuff and you're sitting there thinking, really? I've always had a CD. How did you listen? How did you record it? And how did you listen to music when you were out and about? Yeah, I mean, your parents might have been talking about boomboxes. Your grandparents might have talking about stereo phones or gramophones and stuff like that. Technology's no different, but seeing how you progress with it. Whereas seeing it would, I think it would have actually given people, older people who are watching it, a bit of a smile and a chuckle. I remember that. It's not that far along ago that I get rid of that technology. Whereas Teal'c, he's just looking at technology we're all aware of and he's finding it weird. So they could have a aspect of it as we look at things and we think it's normal, whereas in reality it is absolutely weird as hell. You watch the Kardashians or Big Brother, what is that really doing except watching people sleep or watching people being famous for the sake of being famous because they want 15 minutes of fame? Whereas, so it's different, it's chalk and cheese. However, there's similarities in it, but not, because I suppose you could write your name with cheese and you can eat chalk, but I wouldn't advise it. It's not as if it would kill you, but what I'm saying is they're different as chalk and cheese. One is about seeing how people react to technology changing, and another one is looking at different cultures. I think that way. What's rot in my mind? The fact that I've actually enjoyed it. I've no honestly eaten any chalk, honest gov. Anyway, we'll get by the Torment of Tantarus. Recommended to watch. Definitely one of the best of the the seasons. Thor's Hammer and Torment of Tantarus is actually an upswing for the season 1. Next one I thought was quite a good one because it is a Teal'c centric episode, Bloodlines. It introduced two characters who have got reoccurring character arcs within it. You're talking about Ryak, which is Teal'c's son. Told you we would get to him. Played by Neil Dennis. Fun fact, Neil Dennis played Ryak throughout, even into his adulthood. And then you had Braytek, Tony Amendola, who is just superb. Another great character actor. Braytek and Ryak were good characters to introduce. I thought at times Ryak's character was just, because he was so young, and it was a case of he was a wee snivelling kid and stuff like that, but you see him later on progressing through his teenage years and his rebellious years and into adulthood and want to have his own life type thing. And the fact that they've got the same person playing it throughout, as far as I remember, I don't think it was a different character, but I'm sure Neil Dennis actually played it. The thing is, with this one, with them introducing Ryak and Braytek, it's basically, this is Ryak is Teal'c's son. Teal'c's son's about to undergo his implant of a gold symbiote and to become a slave to Apophis. When you see Braytek in any of the episodes, you know it's going to be good. As he keeps on saying, he's an old man that can kick their arse, but I don't think there was anything in this episode that I thought was bad. Initially I thought the wife, Teal'c's wife, was a bit weird. However, couldn't they have asked if his wife and son come back to Earth? Maybe they didn't want to, I can't remember that aspect of it, but couldn't they have asked if they could bring his wife and son home, so at least he was in Earth, so there's no as if there's a chance they could get captured and cause him to turn against them, because that's why he never mentioned them up until this point, because of that. So it was a good enough episode. It's a good Teal'c episode. Gives a bit more of a backstory to Teal'c. Truthfully, I wish they had a more of an episode like this for Carter as well, because in the movie you had Kathleen Langford's backstory, you had Raz's backstory, you had O'Neill's backstory, you had Jackson's backstory. In this one, they give you Carter's backstory. They give you O'Neill's backstory a bit more. They give you a Teal'c centric backstory. Why he was unsatisfied with it, because he didn't want his son brought up the same way. Whereas I wish they did a Carter centric one where it actually goes back in. They do bits and pieces with the Carter character later on, but I don't think they've had a one that is very centric on her past life or her earlier life. There is parts of the story that I think could be better going into. Yes, she's meant to have been a bookworm and stuff like that, and how interesting would it be watching someone who's very smart grown up, but then again you've got someone who's very smart, very capable, in the military, and still doing all the tough things and still having her brains and her appeal. I think they could have actually did a bit more with Carter's backstory, but in effect, did it need it? Probably not, but it would have been nice. So if you like Teal'c, that Bloodlines is definitely the story for you in this season. Next one, Fire and Water. O'Neill, Carter and Teal'c return through the Stargate shell-shocked, in distress because Daniel's dead. And every time they're trying to convince him to go back and get the body, they keep on going, no, it's a key response. It's almost like somebody's told them they shouldn't be coming back, but it turns out, surprise surprise, it was a false implanted memory, and the team have to go back and find them. However, this is another emotional one, but it's Daniel centric. It's not about his past. It's just centres on him. The only one they've had centred on Carter was Emancipation, and I thought that was a bad one. They've had one with Teal'c, Jackson, now Carter. They've had one for each of the four. It was centric on them. Emancipation was rubbish for a Carter centric one. That's why I don't even class it as Carter centric, because it was just a bad story. And if that's what they thought, what can you say? Anyhow, Daniel's been kidnapped by an alien, a fish alien. And no, we'll not even do the sushi jokes. But in effect, this alien's looking for his mate from ancient Babylon, and think Daniel knows about it. So he's constantly asking him questions. That's why he's kept him, because he reckons somewhere in his brain he knows the answer. How he knows the answer without being able to get the answer was weird. I never understood how his technology managed to work out. He knew the answer, but he doesn't know what the answer was that he knew. But Daniel talks him into doing this and doing that to try and find the answer and help him to retrieve it. I thought the alien was actually okay. However, it's a one-off alien, never mentioned before. Suppose it's very like the crystalline ones, aliens. They're in, gone. That is it. They're one-off aliens. Nothing's mentioned about them again. They're just forgotten. This is a one-off fish alien looking for something, and it might be the last of his race. We don't know, but it's a one-off introduction alien. It's an okay story. It's an emotional story. The good thing is about the alien was it was very alien sounding. I know it sounds silly, because they didn't actually have it suddenly speaking English or whatever. Gradually it learned the language due to its learning facilities, but it was a case of it was speaking in ancient Babylonian, and they were trying to work out words mean and stuff like that. And I thought that was quite good, because it wasn't a case of here's another set of aliens can speak the same language as everybody else. Like for instance in the movie they had the ones from Abydos speaking ancient Egyptian. However, anytime they go back to that or any other alien planet, it doesn't matter what culture they came from, they were all speaking English. Like they had the Minoans speaking English. They've had the ancient Egyptians speaking English. They've had ones that were primitives speaking English. Is that because the Gould speak English? Why? It's one of those things. The movie did a bit better because they all spoke in Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, and it was all subtitles. Yes, you could get the dub version, but I thought it was better that way because it didn't play into the every alien out there speaks English. So Fire and Water was an okay one. The next one was one of my... I just don't like these type of episodes. What's the transporter, Gordon? Come on, you need to give us a bit more context. Because remember, you're running about, I'd say 30 seconds from me. So you need to give me a wee bit more context when you're actually putting something in. So it's your fault. Anywho, the next one was one of Mally's favourites because I don't like these 10. You would agree with it'd be nice not to the case everyone talking English. That's true. It's not like a Doctor Who's reason for everybody speaking English was the... Yes, Star Trek used the transporter to speed up conflicts, but when you're talking about speaking English, Doctor Who got around it because they said the translation circuit put out a field over the planet so everybody could understand each other. So that was a way of them getting around the fact that everybody spoke English, because you wouldn't want them all to speak a different language if you're watching it on a wee TV. You want them to get on with it. Yeah, Star Trek used shuttles occasionally, but yes, the transporters were a thing. But you're digressing, so yeah, because I can't even remember why we were on that one. That's what the Stargate is. The Stargate is their reason to get round. Doctor Who used his TARDIS to be in a different place every time. Stargate used the Stargate. Uh, Star Trek used the Enterprise and transporters to get to a different place each time. Time Tunnel used the Time Tunnel to get different aspects of history. That's a really old one, Time Tunnel. You should watch that. The each show had something, so they had something weird different. You look at Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf, they didn't really had for the first two seasons. They had the same sets, and a lot of people didn't like it when they get rid of those sets and actually moved to different sets. It's that aspect of it. It's the moving around from place to place to get different stories, different sets, and the translation part of it. Yes, but there should have been a wee bit an explanation to it, I suppose. The explanation of why they speak English, is it because they've all assimilated the same cultural thing? Maybe because the Gould all spoke English, because the people they had initially taken spoke English. Then why were they all ancient Egyptians, and down that route? Or it was some piece of technology with the gate. When you go through the gate, you can understand people on that planet for East, and it was built into the gate, so your understanding of the different languages. That way, if people are speaking a different language, then they're not native to that planet, can get away with it. I think that would have been a better way of doing it. So something to do with the Stargate changing your perception so you can understand people. I think that would have been a better way to do it rather than just everybody doing it. Anyway, I digress. Episode 14, Hathor. Hathor, played by Suzanne Braun. Never my favourite episode. I was never... The Hathor character I didn't like. I didn't like these type of aspects where men can be overcome if you just play into their feelings and all that rubbish, because it was the pheromones, her pheromones, right? They could be strong yet, so they're basically saying every male, not all men like women, not all women like men. So why did the pheromones not work on some of the women, or why did it work on all the men and not just one or two of them? Maybe not. They might not have wanted to introduce that aspect of sexuality into it, but they could have had something. It's just a case of the pheromones don't all work in all men. They didn't need to explain why, but the pheromones work, and it's almost a case of all men are ruled by their bodily parts, and they can be easily manipulated if you have enough pheromones to actually make them want to. That, and the fact that people were going against their nature to do it. These type of plots I didn't like. So you had Hathor, the mother of all Goulds, which they dropped later on as well. Brainwashes the men with her pheromones and wants Jack to be the host of the lava. So in effect, is the how do they do it? It just didn't make sense, because if they're lava, that's not how lava are produced, especially in a thing. So she would have had to be out to lay her eggs, as it were. But they were implying that she could do that while she was the host. So it didn't seem to ring true. So the way they did that, and I think that's why they dropped it, because it just didn't work. So she basically controls all the men, and it's all the unaffected women have to take the facility, and even the aspects of it, because they're all pumped up with pheromones, that any woman could actually use it to their extent, and they have to give it this "I'm sexy, come here, boys." I just thought that was just a dire one. I think it made the Fraser, Carter, and a couple of the other female soldiers look uncomfortable, and I think it was just a very uncomfortable situation that they put everybody in. And I think, I'm not entirely sure if much of the cast liked it, but I'm sure there'll be one or two who didn't like the way they were having to portray it. And I didn't like it myself. I just thought it was a bad episode for all men are controlled by their hormones. All women are easily pushed aside. We need to show the boys how it's done, and even the let's seduce them to get them in here and all that. So easily done. Nah, I just didn't like it at all. Men ruled by their hormones, and it's not my favourite subjects, these type of things. I just think it's a contrived situation, as Gordon you would say. So the list said about the Hathor one. She's the mother of all ghouls, so she seduces them, she uses her pheromones to take control. The women beat her down, have to sedate all the men without actually killing them. Then they set fire to Hathor, but she walks away, and then she goes through the gate without anybody actually being able to stop her. Yeah. So we know she's going to appear somewhere later on, and I'm sure later on they bring her back, and it's just the way it's done is just silly. So we'll see how the Hathor character appears later on, because I know she does. And the least said about that episode, the better. I just thought slightly better than Emancipation, but not by much. Next one, Singularity. This introduces another repeating character. She's not in a lot, but she is appearing here and there. Cassandra. I can't remember the girl who played Cassandra, but it's the character Cassandra. They're all going through Stargate SG1 are going through on an astronomical black hole observation mission, and when they go back through, they find a bacterial mass epidemic on the planet that the natives told Daniel months ago that's when they were all going to die. When the black hole happens, they were all going to die. They went through and they found them all dead, and everybody who was all the other scientists and soldiers that were through all died of it as well. The only person that survived was a young girl, Cassandra. So they bring her through the Stargate. She's healthy, fine, nothing wrong with her. They think it's been an introduced pathogen that killed everybody, but she's not got it. Sam's maternal instincts kick in. Yeah, don't buy that either. I'm not nothing to do with the fact is just because she's in the army she's not got maternal instincts, but as if something can trigger it. People have got those instincts all the time. Just because you don't act on them doesn't mean you've not got them. It's nothing to do with the fact it awakens them. She's very fond of the girl. She's just doesn't want to leave her. She finds her very vulnerable, and she feels sorry for the girl because everybody she knows is dead. That's not necessarily maternal instincts, but that's the way it's portrayed on the intro or the bump about the episode, the material. They find the bodies of the people. The Naquita in her body, it's made her immune. However, she starts having seizures and diagnosed construction. It sounds like it's a bomb. The Naquita in her body is starting to build up to become a bomb, and if she goes through the Stargate, bang, as she gets closer to it, it gets worse and worse. So they decide to put her in a deep dark hole and let her explode. Sam was meant to leave her, but ends up coming back down to sit with her. because she's away from the Stargate, she doesn't. So she knows she can't go through the Stargate. The Naquita thing was triggered by them rescuing her and bringing her through the Stargate, which kicked everything into... It was all a plan. It was a Trojan horse, as you say, by the Goa'uld to try and destroy SG1 because they knew they were going to visit that, or they were more likely to. So Sam stays with the girl. However, it's no Sam that adopts the girl, it's Dr. Fraser. Why they had to have Sam in that place where they could have had Dr. Fraser in it, it would have been more believable, because why would Sam have the maternal instincts and then pass her on? It just didn't make sense. It's almost as if it was written by a guy who just didn't understand these things. Whereas if you had Dr. Fraser having those maternal instincts, because she had to treat her, she was the doctor, she would have had to treat her, so she would have got to know her and stuff like that. It would have been smarter, I think, if Dr. Fraser, because at the end it's Dr. Fraser that actually adopts her. So in the end it's almost a case of really. And yes, it's not a good bomb because they wouldn't want to give it any signs. However, it wasn't really meant to give the signs because they thought they were taking them through and kept her in the Stargate location, and then she would get iller and iller and iller. They don't necessarily assume the Earth technology is up to understanding what it is. Remember, Earth technology doesn't even have ships. They don't have energy weapons. They've got projectile weapons. So how smart could they be with nanotechnology in the Aquila build up? They thought as well, they didn't know it would, they didn't know it would decrease with them going further away from the gate. They thought once she went through, it would build up and start going bang. So it's that aspect of it. But I think the worst part of that episode was they had the Sam Carter and Fraser in the wrong roles. I think Fraser would have been better as that aspect of it rather than Carter. That was the only part I've got with that I disliked, because it just almost like they didn't quite understand the characters themselves. But enough about that one. Episode 16 was Con AI. This one was, they travelled to a planet. Teal'c is recognised as once being the Jafar of Apophis, who killed a number of villagers, one in particular someone's father. So they catch him and they want to put him on trial, and while they're putting him on trial, SG1 want to break him out, but he doesn't want them to break him out. And then the Goa'uld turn up, and the basics of the story is Teal'c steps in, he helps save the people who are trying to put him on trial, then they let him off with it. That's the basics of the story. It's actually a good story. It's another one of these emotional stories, but they had some good points and some bad points. Look at the bad points in this one first, right? Sam and Jack return to Earth, trying to get a team to come back through, and they're told no, you can go back through but you're not to interfere. They go back through. The Stargate is in the middle of the village, which is actually infested by the Jafar, hunting for villagers. Yet none of the Jafar heard the Stargate getting activated, were there when they came through, and then they stoated around and managed to hide. It just didn't ring true. It just seemed a bit silly. Stargate right there, nobody's watching it, and even the ones that weren't watching it, they didn't hear it getting activated.
It's not as if it's quiet. There was good parts to it as well. It was an emotional one, and it actually asks a question: when does doing good cancel doing bad? And you look at current day situations, it's actually quite a good one, because they did nuke one of their ships though, and that was in the movie. Gordon, come on to Buggery, we're a wee past that one. Anyway, the message in this one is: when does doing good cancel doing bad? Like for instance, with the current situation with the statues. Some of the people's statues that wanted ripped down is because they were not nice people. But later in life they did good things. That's why the statues were going up. And people say that but they did this. So does that mean that every criminal is still a criminal because they did bad? They can't redeem themselves? When this story actually covers it quite well. When does good you've done get rid of the bad you've done? And I think it's a good story for that, and I think more people should watch it, because not everybody's good, not everybody's bad. People have done bad things, people have done good things. When do you judge them? What do you judge them for? You know what I mean? Look at my bad thing when I grew this beard. Some people think it's a bad choice, some people think it's a good choice. I think it's a lazy choice. But it's one of those things, you just need to actually, this is a good episode to watch. It's a good emotional one, and it is a good reason. It's got a good moral story behind it, because it makes you think. It's not just a case of he's a goodie, he's a baddie, when do you punish him? But I like him, so you should let him off with it. Yes, but does liking someone actually mean that you should get away with things? It's one. It's not an easy answer, and I suppose it's up to each individual to actually realise that themselves. But enough about that one. I thought that was a good story. It's definitely one you should watch within this season. And we'll go on to the next one. And Gordon, this is the one you were telling me about. This is Enigma, where the introduction of the Teal'c and the Mayborn character played by Tom Macbeth. Mayborn, as you remember, starts off in here as Air Force Intelligence, an oxymoron, as Jack O'Neill would say. Anyway, it starts off on their first visit to a new planet. SG find it subject to total destruction and volcanic activity, and saves 10 of the people who were on the planet, the Teal'c. They've got more technologically advanced than Earth, but the leader, Omok, and that is what's his name, Gordon? You told us it. What's his name? Come on, Gordon, tell us his name. I can't remember his name. You did tell us it. I can't remember off the top of my head. Put it in the comments if you remember. But it introduces him, and Omek isn't a grateful person. He's not interested in such a primitive race as the Earthlings are, who are even more primitive planet than they're looking for something less than a primitive planet, because any of the ones that the Earth have introduced them to have been more primitive than Earth. Like for instance the one with the Mayan culture, or the one with the Viking culture. Only the one that Tolan seems to be interested in, that's to do with the fact that he's interested in Carter, I think, and that's Nareem. He likes, because they've never seen animals, because most of the animals on the planet had died due to the volcanic activity. He's never seen a live animal in his life, even though there's a Stargate on the planet, and why they didn't visit out with it, maybe that's just the Tolan for you. But they introduce him to a cat, Schrodinger. Surprise, surprise, Schrodinger's cat. And she gives him and explains that the reason the OMAC is no happy is because they had given their neighbouring planet, who wasn't as advanced as them, something for unlimited energy. And what they did was, within a year, was they turned it into a weapon and destroyed their whole planet, which caused the shift in the gravitational pull, which caused their planet to be, I mean, it's a very Krypton-esque way of dealing with it. It's so that's why he's not happy, but he doesn't want to be dealt with primitives again, primitive cultures. So the White House send the NID, National Intelligence Directive, Colonel Mayborn, played by Tom Macbeth. As I said, this is his first appearance in it, and he does play he does play the same character throughout, although his character changes, and I think he actually gets better as he goes forward. Not nicer, just a better character, a bit more well-rounded and funnier in some respects, and he plays very well against Jack later on in the seasons. But anyway, they want to actually use the Teal'c's technology for military purposes, the exact same thing that the Teal'cs don't want to happen. So the Teal'cs can walk out anytime they want, because they can they can walk right through people and things. So they go out, then they're introduced to the Nox. So it's good to see the Nox again. But then again, it's always good to see the Nox. And Mayborn's character is good at being bad. He's a good bad character, and I think he has fun playing that part. So the two good things about this episode wasn't he's keen on the Teal'c, and maybe I think it's to do with the fact is they were just a wee bit over the top. I thought the two best was the Mayborn character and the reintroduction of the Nox, because obviously initially when you saw the Nox you didn't know they were going to reappear, but this is the first time they did, and it was only just one of them. But an okay story, and I'm sure it had a moral, but couldn't even think of what the moral was. I'm going to fly through the last ones because I want to actually sort of wrap this up in about 20 minutes, because believe it or not, I'm getting hungry again. Anywho, we'll go into Solitudes. This is introducing two other characters. Sergeant Walter Harriman, which he's been in it, but he didn't really get a speaking part. This is the gate operator, and Sergeant Styler. So that's played by Gary Jones and Dan Shear. Fun fact, Dan Shear did his own stunts because he was also the stunt double for Richard Dean Anderson. So a few of the earlier ones he did the stunts for it. Anyway, basically the story is technical defects on this the Stargate, and Neil and Carter are standing next to the Stargate in a cave, are stranded in next to a Stargate in a cave full of ice, and they can't dial in, can't dial out. Every time they dial in they get a tune, and they're basically freezing, and Jack is injured, so they've got 24 hours to fix it. There was some good aspects to this and some bad aspects. The good aspects were they didn't play into the trope. You remember the old Star Trek trope was, it'll take 24 hours to fix it, I'll give you half that. Yes, Captain, and get it done within that time. It's a case of, I'll give you half that. That's not how it works. We've told you the best we're going to get on a good day. You're not going to get it in half of that time. If you want it in half of that time, you should have asked us yesterday. But it's just the fact is, Hammond comes up and says, how long is it going to take? He says 24 hours. He says, you've got 12. And he turns around to him and says, sorry, that's not how it works. And I thought the fact is they played against that trope was really good. Very non-Star Trek. Very well done. The fact that Dan Shear or Sergeant Siler was introduced as a character was good. But it was just the fact is they've got technical people who are just subsidiary characters, and they're not just ones that actually say nothing, do nothing. These are characters that reappear and they do have lines. And also the fact that Dan Shear was the one that did the stunts for Richard Dean Anderson, and especially in season 1 anyway, I thought was quite a good one. But it turns out there's a second Stargate on Earth, and that's where the problem is, because every time they try and dial it, as I said, they keep getting a dial tone, and the only way they can find them is not by dialing the Stargate, but by going to find them where they're located, and it's a race to get there before they die of frostbite, dehydration, freezing to death, running out of food, running out of water, everything. And also Jack's injured and very severely injured, so some good points in this, I must admit. I quite liked this story, and they did keep you in suspense and why it couldn't hang until near the end, so they didn't tell you the punchline. I just told you the punchline, but they kept that from you. So a good story. I would definitely recommend season 1. Couple of bad episodes, but on the whole most of it is good. Next one was one of the funnier episodes, Tin Man. This is the introduce of Harlan Kumchaya. I can't do it because of my hand, but he always had these Kumchaya instead of saying hello or yes. He was Kumchaya. Jay Brazu, I think his pronunciation of his name is. Anyway, after they arrive on one of the planets, P3X 989, they're basically becoming conscious. And then when they wake up, they return to Earth, but soon become they start acting weird, and it's because they're androids. They're not real. So they have to return back through to find out why they're androids. So they go back through to find their real bodies, and it turns out that Hanlon had created them to help him in his planet because it's fallen apart and he was the last one. He was an android as well with the memories, but he didn't tell them. But because he didn't want to tell them, they decided to go home, so they just went home, and they didn't know they were androids. So when they come through, they find the real bodies, and they keep getting told there is no real bodies. They had to get rid of them when they created the copy, but turns out that's not true. And I'm yawning here, but it turned out that's not true. So what they did was the real ones went back through, the androids stayed. Wonder if that's going to be the last time they're actually going to turn up, but that's another story. But I definitely would recommend this one. This is a funnier one. It's only a couple of wee niggles, right? They're in the place, they walk down, they touch something, and they all collapse. And then they wake up later on. The real ones, not the androids who have been programmed to know things. They wake up in a room, and Jack walks up and opens the door. How did he know how to open the door? It's not as if there was a big button press here, it was a lever. How did he know exactly that was the door, and that was the door he needed to go to instead of somewhere else? I just thought, could they not have just gone up to go and ask one of them, how do we get out of here? Oh, it's that there, just pull that bit and that's the one you want to go. They didn't. He just walked up, opened the door as if he'd been round that way before. The only one that had been round that way before was the android. Jack wouldn't know that. And that was the only niggle I had about that episode. On the whole, good episode, fine, on you go. Next one was There But the Grace of God. It's a Langford one again. And while collecting artefacts on a distant planet, Daniel is knocked out after he touched a mirror. He awakens in the same room, but he can't find any of the other team members, so he dials up the gate and comes back, assuming they were left without him. On his return, it's a completely different reality. Hammond is a colonel and Jack's a general, and the Hammond reports to Jack. So Carter's also a civilian who's engaged to O'Neill, and she's a scientist working on the project, and there's no Daniel Jackson because he never was recruited by Langford, who's still in charge of the project. But more importantly, Earth is under attack from the Gould, and there's already 1 million people dead. And Jackson had learned the location of the Gould attack, and he wants to take it back to his reality, and he does. However, this is one of the alternate ones. I thought quite good. I'm yawning here, this is terrible. It was quite a well done way of doing it. It was a cliffhanger ending. It was a nice reality change with all the characters there just in a slightly different position. But the one thing I've always disliked about alternate reality ones is it's not a case of the characters have had a different path. It's sometimes the characters are just so different. You get to know the character after a number of episodes, and then when you see him acting, he's meant to be the same character, but he acts a different way. You think, so what made him change from being this to that? Because you had the Jack O'Neill character was a bit too overly serious. Is it because his son didn't die? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? You don't know. All you know is it's a wee bit off-putting because you're used to your characters playing a particular way. It's not like it's meant to be like the Futurama or Doctor Who type alternate ones, because you look at Inferno, a very old classic Doctor Who one. I think it was a Patrick Troughton one, whereas there's the alternate, and they were all the evil doppelgangers. So you had Lethbridge Stewart was the cowardly despot. You had some of the other characters, they were the opposite. And then you've got Futurama. You had the Bender robot with the wee goatee was the evil one, and it was that playing on it. Anyone's with a moustache or a beard was the evil of the one from this universe. It's no like Star Trek did it as well with the alternate dimension, the transport accident that put them into the Empire one, where same again, they were the evil versions of themselves. And it was that aspect of it. I always find these types just weird because you're getting used to a character and then the character acts a completely different way. I'm not as keen on those ones. They left this as a cliffhanger, and to me it was a weird cliffhanger because it had the feeling that this was their last in the season, and the fact I just found that it had a cliffhanger for the next episode just didn't seem to tie in very well. And then they had a sort of, the next episode was as Gordon would say, is a clip show episode, a filler episode. some good bits and some bad bits. It's called Politics, episode 21, and it had Ronnie Cox, who played Senator Robert Kinsley, the bad guy you love to hate. Played it so well that you just you could see the smarm come off him. He never redeemed himself. He just played the smarmy politician. Anyway, they basically have to justify their project's continuation to somebody who had no interest in continuing it, just wants to actually give them their say, because he said they would, but he already made up his mind, and they have to go rogue. It reintroduces Apophis, brings Apophis back, so that's a good point to it. It's effectively a clip show, because they go through all the previous things and asking them to explain why they did this, why they did that. It's just an excuse to show clips of previous episodes prior to the season end. So it's a case of, you've watched it all season, no problem, here's clips. You never watched it before, well, this is the second last episode, here's some clips to let you catch up. I don't like clip shows like that, but the clip show aside, the small storyline behind it was okay. It was a skip episode between the previous one and the final one. The one with they had the cliffhanger. That's why I think it was. I don't know if it was designed to be the cliffhanger for season 2, and they decided, listen, just let's do another 2 episodes. One we'll do as a clip show, and then we'll do a proper evil end. And that leads us to the last episode of the season, Within the Serpent's Grasp. This reintroduces Skarra, or the evil Skarra. So basically, after the politicians try to shut this one down from the previous episode, Politics, Hammond tries to do everything to get it back in, but is told it's getting shut down. So, because the president didn't want to commit political suicide by going against the senator's decision, because he would have to justify it by bringing it out in the open, which exactly what Kenzie wanted. So he used it as a way to manipulate getting his power over it, because he wanted control of it, and that was the main reason behind it. Politics. But the team ignore it and go through to the visit to visit the address of the gate they had from the last attack. In the room, and it belongs to Apophis, and it's a starship. It's a new superior type of starship that even Teal'c hadn't seen before, and it's got a Stargate on it. So, and they've already launched into hyperdrive to attack Earth. So the one in charge of it is Apophis's son, Corell, still going down the son part, and his host is Skarra, the young Aberdonian, not Aberdonian, Aberdonian from Abydos. The friend, the one that Jack's been trying to help and find, but they're wanting to get Skarra back, so they don't want to actually hurt him, but they want to overpower him and stop the attack. So Carter puts explosives all over all the death gliders that are going to attack, and they set the time for 24 hours just in case. They capture Corell, but the Jaffa managed to liberate them, and although they thought the ship would take months, if not a year, to travel to Earth, it turns out it was faster than they thought, and they turned up outside Earth, and just before Corell turns to him and says, "Before I kill you, look at your Earth been bombed and destroyed, and it shows you they're positioned above Earth. Nice ending, because that's how it finished. It is a definite I want to tune in next season. It is one of the nicer cliffhangers I've ever seen in a lot of TV shows, especially for the end of a first season, because first season you either like it or you hate it at that point. And if you like it, you're going to watch it, but if you hate it, it's sort of a case of, oh, why did I want to see how this finishes. I want to see how they get out of this. You know the bad guys are going to always fail. We all know that. Unless you're actually watching Stargate Universe, then the bad guys are always going to win because it's the bad guys that are running it. That's another story, because I'm not a big Stargate Universe fan. I'm a Stargate SG1 and Atlantis fan, but no, it's Kino on the universe. But that's something for the future. Anyhow, you know the good guys are going to win, but you still want to see how they do it. Anyhow, I'm going to come to a conclusion there. This was just a quick run through. The plans I had were Gordon couldn't make it on tonight, so he was commenting, and I was talking that way, but there's a slight delay between the comments and or me saying something in it broadcasting. So when I was getting the comments, Gordon was commenting to things I'd already said. So hoping to have Gordon on, and the two of us will have a discussion about the season 2, and I'll make sure season 2's ready for Gordon to watch so we can catch up. I'll plan to do it either next week or the following week, so if you like what you see, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want more, please subscribe. And remember, I'm not old, I'm classic. PJ may be out.